Hi, welcome to the Trauma and Resilience Podcast. I'm Ricky Robertson. Today, our guest is Petra Burkhardt. Petra is a school nurse who works in a Title I school that serves elementary and middle school students. Petra, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
So tell us a little bit about the work that you do.
I am a nurse at a Title I school. We work almost exclusively with Alaska Native students where we are. I'm here for medical safety support in any way I can.
Now, when I first met you, I was working with your school as a consultant, and I was so impressed because you participated on the school's leadership team and particularly helped to brainstorm some of the behavioral and social emotional supports that your school provides. And I have to say, that's not always common for a school nurse to be on that team, but you contributed such valuable information about the students. And one of the things that impressed me was you really form relationships with the students that you work with. Talk to me a little bit about why you feel like those relationships are important and how you go about forming them with students.
So I think I've always felt relationships are important. I'm super lucky that our school is small because with about 250 kids, I'm able to meet and know and understand and learn to grow with students, where nurses who have 1,000 or more they don't have that option. I think with the leadership team, I have a history of working in a behavioral health hospital. So behavior is something that was in my background. So it kind of came naturally. It was a good fit for me to kind of brainstorm behavior. I'm excellent at not getting in a power struggle. That kind of learned how not to get into those. I think just being with these kids every single day, year after year, this is my 9th year in this school. You can't help but not form relationships with them. It's almost, I hate to say, it's almost like a family. Like you get to know the kids, you get to know the families, and everything that you do to engage with them is more positive when you know them well.
Would you tell us a little bit more about how you avoid those power struggles? Because I think that's something a lot of us could benefit from learning about.
I think there's an old TV show that what comes through my brain is do not engage. I repeat, do not engage. When you see kids escalating, and we just need to wait it out and give them space, because anything you get into with like an ultimatum, you either have to, you put yourself in a position where you have to follow up on it, or you don't follow up on it, and then your word doesn't mean anything the next time. So I've just really learned to just kind of wait things out, understand that maybe something has triggered me or maybe something is affecting me, but I just kind of say, okay, I'll deal with that later. I'm just going to kind of shelf that and kind of process and think through that later and get through.
Now, you mentioned that you learned a lot of those skills while working in behavioral health. What was your journey like to becoming a school nurse?
When I graduated at University of Maine at Orono, I went almost directly into a family practice because their dad was a friend of mine from high school, and went from there, had a family, worked at behavioral health just because I always liked kids. Kids were always like some of my favorite people to be around, kids and seniors. When I got into behavioral health, I realized that's not a job you can do forever. That is really a hard job. It's emotionally hard. Kids can get very physical, so it can be physically hard. And I thought, well, I've done medical and I've done behavioral, and I think school nursing would be an awesome fit. So I was ready I did that part-time my first year here and then went full-time after that.
So what do you feel is one of the most enriching things for you as a school nurse specifically and working in schools?
A lot of nursing is people coming to you kind of fix that. It's a very short term. In family practice, I was seeing people and it would be very short term. You'd be on your way and maybe I'd see you 6 months later, a year later. Even in behavioral health, it was maybe we have you for 30 days and I never see you again. And here in schools, I see you pretty much every day. Hate to see you go at the end of the school year. Love to see you back at the beginning of the next school year. The whole getting in with the kids and the families instead of just I love to see families too. I'd love to see the same families and the families that bring in more children into our schools. And I'd say the biggest difference is just the rooted in as far as relationships, just being really rooted in.
And how do you go about building those relationships? Like, what are some of the simple things you do? Because I have to imagine you're busy all day long and you're in your office or school clinic. And so there's a lot of demands and a lot of things on your plate. What are some of the simple ways that you build those relationships, especially ways that other education support professionals who might be listening could take away some ideas or strategies for how they could build those connections with students and also with families?
It's very little bits at a time. We have a setup where kids, when they come into school, we are everywhere. I'm one of the first people that kids see. And so if I notice that somebody is upset or having a hard time, I know that I can check in with that kid sometime that morning and just say, hey, I noticed you looked really upset. I mean, I just get that window of what they look like right when they come in. And I think that's super important. We're winter in Alaska where it's cold. I get a lot of kids who come see me for gloves, hats, just those little tiny visits where they come see me and I just, hey, what do you need? How can I help? Maybe I ask about something else that's going on. When we have kids who end up with me just because they need to calm down, just once they've calmed down, learning something that they're interested in, like maybe it's video games. I had a kid who was really, really into Minecraft. For a long time, there was like an endo dragon. So as soon as as soon as he would just start to come down a little bit, I could make something up like, gosh, I hear that endo dragon is like pink with purple spots or something now. No, it's not. And it would just come right now because I know this is a big thing for him and he would just totally move him in another direction. So you just have to have that little in, and you'll know how to kind of get off that emotional high and get them onto something else.
I think it's so important to keep in mind that relationships are really built in those moments. And I think as the adult working in the building, it's easy to lose sight of that. And I love that you talk about it's just those little moments of connection. What about building relationships with families? What are some of your strategies for that?
We have family nights here. So now that we're in this building, it's been tougher because we just don't see families as much as we did when we were in our own building. Our dismissal process, I was in our other building, I was one of the ones taking kids to the car. So I would literally, hey, how are you, to the families, because I was taking the kids to their car. We don't have buses here. Now during the dismissal process, we'll have some families come to the door. I know those families really well. Sometimes I go out to each of the cars and I get to see families there and just say a quick great thing about their kid or, we're so glad that they're here.
But again, I love that it comes down to those moments, those little, and that you put yourself out there to be there when students are arriving at school, to be there during dismissal, you're out and you're present in the building, and then building that connection with families through positive communication. In a previous episode, we were talking with Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris, and she talked about as a pediatrician, she would sometimes have children come to her and they'd have physical ailments, but that physical ailment would just be the tip of the iceberg. And there'd be some deeper social or emotional issues or even exposure to adverse childhood experiences or trauma that would be underneath that physical ailment or that presenting condition. I guess I'm wondering, have you ever had a similar experience as a school nurse where a student comes to you with a stomach ache or a headache or something, but it's just the tip of the iceberg and there's something deeper at play that is causing some of those symptoms or just causing that student to reach out for connection with you in some way?
I think it happens even more often than I am always aware of or able to navigate through. One kid that really just kind of blew my mind at the time was I saw him for 2 years, just a lot. And it was just for little tiny things. And of course, you're always trying to figure out is it math? Are they having trouble with another student? Like what is actually going on here? And after a couple years, he came in and he just started to open up about depression and just thoughts. It was just really intense, deep feelings. And I had thought we had a pretty good relationship. So when he would talk about how these things were going on for years, I was like, why, I wish you had told me earlier. Or I wish, I knew I could help earlier. And he just said, well, I was trying to figure out whether or not I could trust you, which made me really feel like that's a lot of responsibility. That kind of made me feel like there's a jar, and every time that he came in, he was just putting a marble in the jar. Like, is she going to be patient? Is she going to be nice? Is she going to validate me? Is she going to accept me? And then when that jar got full, kind of opened up about a lot of things. But now that's another reason that makes me think these little tiny moments they can be huge, and I don't want to miss them.
What suggestions do you have for other education support professionals? Because every adult in the building has the potential to be that person to form that meaningful relationship in a child's life. And do you have any advice that you would offer them for ways that they can better support students, especially those impacted by trauma?
One of the things I do is I just observe. I observe during arrival. We have a UPIC teacher with our younger grades. She's just this little, most non-threatening person you can imagine. And she just scoops up with these hugs, and she's very warm. And I know which kids gravitate to her. So if I needed support from somebody, I would know, oh, this is one of those kids that really gravitate to this UPIC teacher or our older UPIC teacher or behavioral specialist. It's just really observing who has relationships with the kids, who has the best relationships. And anytime you can get involved with any kind of group in your school where you can see the kids year after year, or you can hear from other teachers how they did the year before, especially if you're new, I think that's super important.
So, Petra, when I hear that, I guess I have two questions that come to mind. So, first is obviously for viewers who might not be aware, would you tell us a little bit about what Yupik is?
It is one of the Alaska Native languages. My understanding is it's one that has the most literature behind it, or the most educational behind it, because there's a lot of Alaska Native languages, but this seems to be the one with the broadest base that we can teach in a school. And we do teach some of the other cultures, but Yupik is our main focus.
Another question that came to mind for me was, as you're observing students and their interactions with other staff, besides kind of noticing which students are connected to which adult, are there other things that you're looking for?
I think if you watch kids during their lunchtime or their PE time or their art time and see, are these kids together? Are they isolated? Who is kind of standing out as alone? I talked with one kid who just wasn't comfortable during lunch, weren't comfortable around the other. It was the only place that wasn't structured in their day. And talked to the behavioral specialist, and we just thought, well, maybe this kid could volunteer with one of our younger grades. How can we make them feel like they're productive and help in a class and not uncomfortable with lunch? We do the circles in the morning, so everybody kind of talks, and teachers are really good about saying, hey, I'm worried about this kid or that. It's a lot of staff communication. Who are we worried about? Do multiple people in the staff worried about the same kid? Sometimes something comes up, it's completely off our radar. We had no idea something was going on, and we just want to communicate that with the other staff members so we can kind of all support the best we can.
I love that, because it really is a whole staff approach. And then every individual in the building, whether they're the custodian or the administrator or a teacher, they can all play a role in helping to create kind of a community of support with students and to build those relationships so that every student's connected to at least one adult in the school. I think that that's a powerful thing for listeners to take away, is what happens when we work together and collaborate as a whole staff to support our students. Now, building those relationships can be a lot of emotional labor. Are there times when you've experienced compassion fatigue or exhaustion from caring in your work?
So in Alaska, January and February are really dark, and they're cold and they're tough. And I think more than anything, just dark kind of affects us all. We all get tired. Even when I think that, gosh, our kids are doing great emotionally, like what a strong group we've got going right now. January and February hit, and the emotions really hit. So I do get a lot of tears in my office, just a lot of overwhelmed in my office. And it is hard because I can't fix everything. I feel really comfortable with de-escalating kids and getting them through those moments. It's really hard to get through the long-term sadness, depression, just some really thick emotions. I think I get through it by just saying, hey, March is coming. I know the family's behind them. I know that there's supports in place. I know I can't fix everything. I think I have the hardest time when the day is super busy and I feel rushed and I'm with a kid I know needs more and I don't feel like there's enough of me to give it. I think those are my hardest moments because then I go home thinking, my gosh, wasn't able to get through. I think that kid needed more. Try to follow up with them again in the next couple days. January and February, I wish we had a counselor here. And I know I keep being an advocate for that, but the budget is the budget. So as it is, we do the best we can and just try to make sure that they're hooked up with outside services. And families have been really great about that.
I definitely don't want to step over the fact that I think every school should at least have one counselor, at least, especially given the social emotional needs of young people and the staff as well. I mean, counselors play such a vital role in supporting the well-being of the entire school community. I guess I'm just wondering, what is something that you do to support your well-being during this time, especially in those tough months like January and February?
I take vitamin D. I go to bed early. I probably sleep more. We all kind of go into hibernation.
I think sometimes we forget that the most important act of self-care can be a nap, right?
Yeah.
I mean, finding that opportunity to get rest, in my opinion, is an important and wise decision to support your well-being. So can you think of a story that when things were tough in your work, it reminds you of your impact or reminds you of what's possible and just inspires you in your work?
Just seeing some of our kids who have gone through some pretty tough family struggles and to seeing them do well, kids whose attendance may have been really, really spotty, but then you notice the following year that they're excellent and they're here and teachers are praising them. I mean, I've got a call to make probably next week that just says, hey, your kid is rocking it. They're here on time every day. Just having a kid that's here every day when it's been so rough and spotty before, it's very exciting for me. Like, I just love it. When I hear kids are doing well in math because of their attendance, because they're here, I love it. Anytime I hear positive, I just get excited about that.
I think that's so important to savor the positive, all right? There was this quote by Barbara Fredrickson where she said, the negative screams at us and the positive only whispers. And so it's so important for us to find those little opportunities to celebrate and savor those examples of progress, or a student who's had a turnaround, or those incredible signs of human resilience. Whatever those little positives are, we really have to seek them out, look for them, and take a moment to revel in them. I'm curious, Petra, is there a resource that has helped you in your own learning journey to become more trauma-informed that you would recommend for our audience to check out?
So when our school started doing trauma-informed care kind of right off the bat, the books I was reading just kept having Bruce Perry, Dr. Bruce Perry, Dr. Bruce, and I was like, I need to go see who this guy is because everybody's quoting him. He's kind of everywhere. And if you just even YouTube or Google, he's tons of these short little snippets of these just little 5-minute, 15-minute videos of way he explains how trauma affects the brain, which is awesome. I've read the book, What Happened to You, which is very conversational back and forth and very easy to read. And I like that one a lot. If you want to go really dense, I read The Body Keeps the Score, which is even while I was reading it, I was like, I need to go back and read this again. It's just not as easy to ever read. It's very dense. But I would say that those were all good. But just for little snippets, when you're busy, just watching a little snippet on Bruce Perry is great.
Absolutely. The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk is an excellent book, especially for those recovering from their own adverse childhood experiences or experiences of trauma, but it is a dense read. I appreciate what you said, though, about even looking for bite-sized resources like little videos by Dr. Bruce Perry, which are an excellent resource, as well as his book that he co-authored with Oprah, What Happened to You. Those are all excellent resources. So I have one last question, Petra. When you think about your work, what is one way that it has changed you?
My mom was a teacher. My dad was military. I grew up pretty just my normal was just, everybody has a bed. Everybody has a house. Everybody's got a mom and dad. And I think being here, my understanding of what normal is has changed a lot. Just a much bigger perspective. How I word things has changed just since my first year here. When I ask a kid how they're sleeping or where they're sleeping, not everybody has a bed. So I don't say like, hey, That just doesn't even enter my vocabulary anymore. Everything is a wide open question as I try to understand where kids are coming from. I don't have any assumptions really anymore. I just love these kids. I love these kids and where they come from and how they interact with us. I don't know, they're great. I don't know.
Petra, that's wonderful. I can hear the joy in your voice. I can hear the way this work has expanded your heart. And I also think it's valuable to think about what you said about how our assumptions and our preconceived notions can sometimes become barriers to connecting. And that if we're mindful of the ways that we talk with students and one another and really think about the questions we ask and the ways that we invite someone to share their lived experience with us, that's when connection is possible.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Petra. It's been wonderful to talk with you and to share with you today. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
The Trauma and Resilience series is made possible by a partnership between the National Education Association and WETA. For more information, please visit adlit.org/trauma. Trauma and Resilience is available on YouTube and on every major podcast platform. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe to the whole series so you won't miss an episode.